for most of us, when we're walking through life, we have different levels and different layers to our individual journeys. And when we're journeying through life with people whose journey is similar to our own or whose journey is paralleling ours, it's easier to find those points of connection, which includes being able to find those positives in life. So you have someone to lean on for support and find that gratitude or that grace or the joy or whatever the positives are in life. You're there to remind each other because you're going through the same things. When you go through something that's very isolating, when you go through an experience that feels like your path does not align with anyone else's, you look around and you don't see anyone around, it can be really scary. I remember years ago, I did a lot of running. I did several half marathons, and I remember doing one full marathon, and I'm pretty slow. Like I don't run fast at all. And so a good ways into that, I want to say like around mile 17, 18, somewhere around there, I was in a space where I couldn't see anyone in front of me that was part of the race, and I couldn't see anyone behind me that was part of the race. And I kind of panicked because I wasn't sure if I was going the right way or if I was even on the right path. There was nobody there to encourage me or say good job or just to kind of be someone to follow or someone to lead. There was nothing. And I was kind of panicked for a moment. And I remember coming to an aid station and I cried because I just think I was so exhausted. And I said, am I even going the right way? Am I the last one? And they reassured me that I was going the right way and I wasn't the last one. But I just remember like that moment was, I kind of remembered it. And I've thought about it throughout my life when I've been in um, isolating situations where it's not always easy to find things like gratitude and grace, and it's really not easy to find joy.
Lance and I lived a very isolated life for over 12 years. And at some point in there, I found that we were not living with joy and had to really stop and assess what was going on because we had become so isolated. But up until maybe a couple of years before I realized it, we had been living with joy. So I had to really look at what had changed, what had stolen our joy. We weren't living with gratitude. We weren't living with hope. It just felt like it was a hopeless situation. And we just had kind of lost everything. So it was basically, I guess, starting over from scratch for me. So in our situation, Lance had been sick. He was sick for over 25 years. And at this point, he'd been sick for probably about 15 years. And when I stopped and I looked at what had happened, we didn't have control over the disease. There was nothing that we could do to get rid of that. We had to live with that. So we had to work around that. The only thing that I could do was remove things in our life that were negative, that were not the disease. And what it ended up being was a whole bunch of negative relationships. We had people dictating to us. We had people giving us their opinions, criticizing us. And it made it impossible to live with joy, gratitude, and hope because we were always told that we were doing everything wrong. And once I removed all of that negativity, that was when all of those things started to return. And I'm not saying that that was easy. It was really, really hard because we were cutting out relationships. But in the end, it ended up being necessary to our survival. And I'm so glad that we did it.
It's interesting that your experience for as much as our experiences kind of parallel each other, you had this experience of negativity and criticism, and while I definitely experienced throughout my life. Um, some, negativity, criticism, people offering unsolicited advice about ways that I should do things differently, or have you tried this, or I can't believe you're doing that. I would say I had something kind of opposite. So I had um, I don't know, I had a period of time in my life, a long time, where things were not good. But I never wanted to tell anyone about it because I really felt like I had this vision that they were going to get better. Things were going to get better. Things were going to change. Things were going to improve. And because I kept that, and we've talked about in past episodes that I am naturally an overly optimistic person because I can't stand to look at the negative possibilities of things. It like frightens me too much. So I always had this probably like kind of undue optimism about my life and that things were going to get better no matter how bad they were. And so because I had that going on, I think I projected that around me. And so I was always surrounded by people who were telling me, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Your life's so amazing. Your kids are so amazing. Your marriage is so amazing. You're doing such a good job. And I knew what was falling apart on the inside. So I never felt like I could share and let those people down. So it was kind of an opposite thing. So that was my isolation, came from knowing the truth about my day to day and not feeling like I could say that, or I would disappoint and let down everyone around me. And to speak to that point, I know someone who to this day, and I've been divorced, oh my gosh, about 10 years now. And this person still, every time I see them, they get so sad about my ex. Expressed to me almost in tears how sad it is that my ex is not around anymore. And it really bothered me at first, but now like I just kind of laugh about it. But just kind of goes to show like I had created this image and held everything together so that when I did let it go and everything fell apart, it was traumatizing to a lot of people around us. And I knew that would be the case, but I was sacrificing my own well-being and my own honesty, right? I wasn't being honest and straightforward with the people around me. So that isolation is like the exact opposite of what you experienced, but it made the challenges equally as real.
And for me, I was sharing the challenges, and that's where all that negativity was coming from because I was being told that I wasn't doing it right. I needed to be more positive. Just all those things. People were not trying to really look at what was going on in our life. There had to be something that I was doing wrong. And so for me, I felt like Lance and I had fallen in this pit of despair. Uh, his health was changing much more rapidly than it had been, and things were going wrong. He'd already been retired from work for a couple of years. He was probably right around 40 at this time. I was 38-ish and had quit my job to stay at home and take care of him. That's not normal for that age. And we were so desperate for people to believe us, to support us, to encourage us, and it wasn't happening. And living in that pit of despair, all of that negativity from those people, they were like boulders, giant boulders in that pit with us, blocking the sunlight. We couldn't see anything good. And so removing those boulders, we were able to see the sun again, and we were able to climb out of that pit and regain our hope and our gratitude and our joy. But it was not easy. And it did take a lot of heartache and a lot of really hard work to get to that point.
I am so glad that you were able to kind of figure that out, because I can't imagine how many people never get out of that pit and never find the joy that's right there waiting for all of us if we're able to correct the things in our lives that are causing the problem. And sometimes it's internal, it's something in us that we need to adjust. For me, it was being honest with the people around me and being more vulnerable and being able to share what was really going on and not worry about people's reactions or their disappointment or any of that. And for you, it was, removing the people in your life that were causing that heartache in you and that pain that you were experiencing just from being constantly criticized. I I'm thankful that that was not something that I had to deal with. I got my fair share of criticism, but I don't think any more than anyone else. And that was not something I had to deal with. I look at it, and I think I said this to you when we kind of were preparing for the episode, is that I'm so grateful that even in the worst times, and I had some pretty isolating times, like I don't like to get into it and talk about it very much because I don't know that it's as fruitful to talk about the details, but I genuinely had some pretty rough times where I did feel like I was all by myself, but I did have my kids around me, and the purpose that I had in knowing that I had to stay engaged to raise them and to be there for them and be their mom, that I was responsible for them. Like, that brought these glimpses of joy when I was at the very end of myself. I still had those things to be thankful for, these little five people in front of me. Even on our worst days, I could find gratitude in the fact that I was chosen to be their mom. And so that would lead me to a moment of joy and would carry me a really long way.
And that's what happened with me, but I had to remove that negativity. And I guess really just get back to it being Lance and me and what our purpose in life was. And it was to enjoy what we could, because there was so much that was out of our control. And so once we were able to do that, we did live with joy again. And we were able to do that. We still had several years left, at least 8 or 9 years left of his life. And I can't even imagine what our life would have been like. I don't even know if I would have stayed, honestly. If I had to continue to deal with that negativity all the time, I don't think that I would have survived it. So, getting rid of that negativity, we were able to enjoy our life and have a really good life. And I have all these great memories because of it.
Well, and likewise, when I finally allowed myself to stop trying to hold the entire universe together and worry about disappointing people, when I let go and just said, I can't hold it all together, that was the beginning of me experiencing a deeper joy than I probably ever had prior to that. So it's funny how when we're walking forward in our lives in truth and authenticity, we open up space for the best parts of our life to kind of shine through. And, I think joy is kind of the very bedrock of that.
But it can take a while to find it, especially if you've lost it and it's buried somewhere deep.
Would you say it was worth finding though?
Oh, absolutely. So glad that I went on that journey. It was hard. It was really hard. I mean, thinking back on it, when we talk about some of these topics and I have to look back on that time in my life, it is really hard. But then I see where it took us, and it was absolutely worth it.
I think so too. Well, RuthAnn, thanks for just allowing me to share about this. Something that's so dear to me is just living with joy and that leading to purpose in our lives, and sometimes purpose helping us find our joy, but having joy is the bedrock for everything that we do, and how useful that is, and how it can take sometimes a really, really bad situation or really dark situation and just lighten it a little bit. So thanks for talking to me about this today, and I will see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.